Hey, I'm sorry, man. Shit.
My son's life was taken. It wasn't an accident. His life was taken.
You're gonna hear from her how he grabbed her by the back of her head and slammed her head into the hardwood floor repeatedly.
Facing decades in prison, Teddy Baltimore Smith chose not to apologize to the family of the man he killed over an incident involving spitting. Instead, he blamed the victim for provoking him.
He up on me and he spit on me. You know what I'm saying? After I asked him please not to do that, I don't know how come he did that.
In August, a jury convicted Smith of killing Gilbert Cerna for spitting out of a truck window. At his sentencing today, Smith spent about 15 minutes retrying the case and recounting details of the crime. Eventually, the victim's sister stopped listening and walked away. Earlier, the prosecutor read a statement she had written for the judge.
Because of you, my family and I will never share precious moments together. Nothing you receive will ever bring him back to us. Because of you, there will always be a big part of my heart missing.
Prosecutors say that last May, Gilbert Cerna was a passenger in a utility truck when he spat out the window, and it landed on Smith's black BMW. Jeffrey Hunter, who was driving the car, recalls Smith confronting Cerna. The two argued, and then Smith returned with a knife.
Stuck him with the knife. He had his hand up on the truck, holding it, reached in with his right hand. And, how you lean up on something and you're doing it like that.
It didn't take long for a jury to convict Teddy Baltimore Smith. Now, prosecutors were asking the judge to sentence him to up to 25 years. The judge decided on 28 years. Smith had the last word. Once again, Smith was sentenced to 28 years in prison. He has 30 days to appeal the sentence. When Luis Reyes learned that he'd be in jail for the next 30 years, his body language made it clear that the bailiffs would have to restrain him. As the door shut behind Reyes, his mother wailed, and then her son screamed. Judge Michael Andrews didn't have any sympathy for the minor that allegedly robbed, beat, and raped a woman who's now 91 years old. Reyes, along with Carlos Fernandez, both pleaded no contest and got the same sentence.
I think they deserve long prison time. If not for the United States case of Graham, we would ask the court to sentence him to life imprisonment.
Prosecutors sought life in prison, but a Supreme Court ruling prevented minors from receiving such a sentence. Jonathan Rodriguez, who was also involved, made a plea deal and received 20 years. Before the courtroom chaos, the elderly woman sat quietly with friends, listening to the apologies through a headset.
I'm sorry. She'll never know I'm truly sorry. I really am.
The judge stated that he didn't believe the men showed any remorse.
She was just very happy that it was going to be over. She just kept saying, I want it over, I want to put it behind me and to be able to move on.
Stacy Scuderi, the wife of a prominent Naples attorney known for her run-ins with the law, is heading to jail for over half a decade. Scuderi has been accused of everything from sparking high-speed chases to assaulting and stealing from neighbors. Carl Fortier explains how a judge finally said enough is enough. Reporting from Collier County, he has more on her plea deal. This morning, Scuderi's attorneys offered a plea deal to put their client in prison for 6 years. However, the judge initially rejected the offer, stating that considering the severe nature of the charges, the sentence needed to be more challenging. As she entered the courtroom, Scuderi kissed her husband, John. Stacy Scuderi appeared much calmer than she was in a video from May 2014, which showed her attacking a neighbor and wrestling her to the ground.
Starts choking me, biting me, tries to get me down on the floor, and I'm wrestling with her at this point.
That neighbor said she feared for her life. This incident was just one of many complaints from other neighbors in the Saturnia Lakes community who reported that Scuderi had broken into their homes.
She was standing in our kitchen, 2:30 in the morning.
Neighbors say Scuderi stole from them and even attacked her own children's nanny. Then, last December, deputies arrested her after she allegedly led them on a high-speed chase down Immokalee Road at 110 miles an hour while drunk, eventually crashing inside her gated community. She has been in jail ever since. Today in court, the judge rejected her attorney's plea offer of 6 years in prison, saying it wasn't enough. Assistant State Attorney Greg Credos worked out a deal that added 4 years of strict probation, including mental health assessments and DUI classes. Her 6-year prison sentence will include time served.
We believed it was going to hold her accountable, punish her, send a message to other people who try and engage in that conduct. And 5 years is a long time. She's got small children.
The judge reminded Scuderi that if she violates her probation after being released from prison, she could face an additional 15 years behind bars. A boy charged as an adult will serve years behind bars for driving intoxicated and causing a crash that killed a college student. Hunter Stevenson entered a plea in a Wakefield courtroom and soon learned his fate. It was certainly an emotional day in court as the family of Thomas Hugg shared memories of him. They described him as a kind-hearted, dedicated young man who loved food, music, riding his motorcycle with his mom, and spending time with his girlfriend.
My son's life was taken. It wasn't an accident. His life was taken.
Emotional testimony from the family of Thomas Hugg was heard in court. Hugg, a Hopkinton man, would have been turning 24 next week. He was killed in 2016 when his motorcycle was hit head-on. Police say Hunter Stevenson was behind the wheel of the other car, driving drunk.
Just know that there's not a day that goes by that I don't think about you guys and the pain that I've caused and the impact it's had on my life. Words can't express the guilt I feel for you guys. And today I take responsibility for all of my actions.
Stevenson was tried as an adult and pleaded no contest to charges of DUI death resulting and driving to endangered death resulting.
For the past 876 days, I've waited to confront the self-absorbed killer who took my only son's precious life. Tommy's death was needless, and I have no sympathy for the position of the defendant and the position he placed himself. There's no greater gut-wrenching feeling than shopping for your own child's casket. Which do you prefer, wood or steel, beige, brown, or maroon?
Hugg's mother, Jennifer, showed no sympathy for Stevenson, stating that she wishes the rest of his days were filled with anguish.
The defendant will experience lawful correction that results in a blend of time and parole. But my penance is a lifetime sentence.
Today, a judge handed Stevenson 2 concurrent sentences of 10 and 15 years, with 7 years to serve. Involved in a recent road rage incident on the 190, James Woolley faced a judge this morning. This isn't his first run-in with the law. Back in 2001, Woolley pleaded guilty to DWI and then spent time in jail for another DWI conviction 2 years later. He also pleaded guilty to harassment in 2004 and criminal possession of marijuana in 2013. Today, he pleaded not guilty to reckless endangerment charges. The incident occurred on the 190 near the Clinton Street exit in Buffalo. For the first time, we are seeing the driver's face. This is 46-year-old James Woolley. In court earlier today, police identified him as the pickup truck's driver in the viral video. The video shows Woolley cutting off another car, a Navy Chevy Malibu, and forcing the driver off the road. In the footage, Woolley can be seen getting out of his pickup truck and appearing to throw an object, which police say was a rock, at the Chevy Malibu. State police have described this as some of the worst road rage ever. In situations like this, they advise remaining calm and composed.
You win the argument, you're going to lose the battle. What if you get in an accident? What if someone else gets hurt? And then, by the grace of God, again, in this incident, no one did. But think past it. What happens if something goes wrong that you obviously cannot control and can't predict?
Bail still hasn't been set for James Woolley, but we expect to find out when he's back in court later this week. The video has certainly opened some eyes, and state police say they're glad it circulated because it highlights how serious a problem road rage can be. A deputy's body cam video shows the aftermath of a deadly crash nearly 2 years ago at the intersection of Bloomingdale Road and Blowing Oak Street. The man accused of causing it is Philip Westfall. Prosecutors say that on December 3rd, 2020, Westfall ran a red light at the intersection. His 2018 Chevy Tahoe slammed into a Chevy Equinox, killing 30-year-old passenger Michael McCroy. They say Westfall was driving drunk and was clocked going 92 miles per hour, double the speed limit.
Some of the things found in the Chevy Tahoe were Budweiser bottle caps.
20 months later, Philip Westfall pleaded guilty to several charges, including DUI, manslaughter, and vehicular homicide. Now, he was asking for mercy.
I just want to let you know that I'm not the guy that let this accident happen and made those decisions.
But Michael McCroy's father said that Westfall is the man who caused him a lifetime of suffering.
That's a lot. I can't express what you put us through. A lot.
Prosecutors asked the judge for a lengthy sentence of 18 years, while the defense requested 4. Judge Mark Kaiser ultimately sentenced Westfall to 15 years.
This whole case is a terrible tragedy, and again, nothing I can do here will fully repair the damage and harm that Mr. Westfall's egregious and dangerous actions caused.
Deputies are calling a road rage incident from February of 2020 that left a man dead. Today, a second man involved in that deadly shooting was sentenced to life in prison. We've been covering this incident since it happened. Inside the courtroom, Isaiah Robles' family made it clear they have been waiting for justice for 2 years. They finally heard that both men involved in the incident were sentenced to life in prison.
For the U-turn that you made in your car when you ran down the victim in this case, you wouldn't be here. You made your bed, now you have to lie in it.
Judge Porter delivered powerful words to Victor Cullen Jr. as he learned he would spend the rest of his life in prison. For the Robles family, it was a moment of relief.
My family understood that we needed God's will to take place and that we needed to come to an understanding that justice would prevail.
The Robles family, who waited 2 years for justice, has seen the shooting because it was all caught on camera. This Lee County Sheriff's Office video shows what happened on February 19, 2020. Investigators say Ricky Ruiz shot the victim 16 times after chasing him through rush hour traffic. Victor Cullen Jr. was driving that day with Ruiz, and both men fled town after the shooting. Federal marshals later arrested them in Miami. Today, the Robles family says they have finally seen justice.
Let's not forget the lives that have been sacrificed. He was a friend. He was a friend, even to the perpetrator.
But that justice comes with a large void.
We will never be the same again.
A 73-year prison sentence caused an emotional outburst in court today. Alexis Malloy hid in the back seats of women's cars earlier this year, and then either robbed them or forced them to withdraw money for him. He also raped one of his victims. Allison Brown is on assignment with one of the victims, who says she prayed for his soul.
Hey, I'm sorry, man.
Anger and tears marked Alexis Malloy's reaction after learning his fate in Lucas County Common Pleas Court this morning. Judge Jeans Muda handed down a 73-year sentence. Known as the backseat robber, Malloy was found guilty in September on several charges, including rape, aggravated burglary, and kidnapping, traumatic violence that his victims won't soon forget.
Total sentence is 73 years.
This morning, several of Malloy's victims screamed and thanked God when the sentence was announced.
They're still hurting every day and feeling the pain of what he did to them, and it's still going to be a long road of recovery for them.
It did take away my independence, and your independence is very important for you, especially as a woman when you have to go to and from places and function in society.
But earlier this year, that sense of security was taken away. Malloy's attorney says his client has always been very cooperative and plans to appeal the sentencing next week. Parents are typically seen as caregivers who would do anything to protect their children from harm, nurturing, comforting, and loving them unconditionally. However, this wasn't the case for 22-year-old Liam Dean from Wakefield. The young father couldn't even bear to hear his daughter's voice, and when he couldn't calm her down, he decided to silence her forever. Liam had been dating Karen Bissett for a few months when she became pregnant with Luna. Despite his displeasure at the prospect of becoming a father, Liam moved in with Karen and her mother at their home in Wakefield, where Luna was born on July 9, 2017. Unsurprisingly, Liam began showing signs of resentment as soon as Luna was born. He complained that her constant crying kept him awake and disrupted his plans. He also accused Karen of neglecting him and paying more attention to the baby, eventually becoming verbally and physically abusive towards her. On the night of July 10, 2017, Karen was exhausted from taking care of Luna all day and decided to nap. She left Luna in Liam's care, hoping he would look after her and feed her when she woke up. Little did she know, her baby would not survive the night. As soon as Karen went to sleep, Luna began crying uncontrollably, which annoyed Liam immensely. In his desperate attempt to calm her, he tried feeding her a bottle, but when she refused to take it, he became enraged. He physically harmed her, causing head trauma and severe brain injuries. As if that wasn't enough, he squeezed her tiny body and shook her violently until she was quiet and motionless. He then placed the lifeless child back in her crib, covered her with a blanket, and carried on as if nothing had happened. He neither called for help nor checked on her. When Karen asked about Luna the next morning, he lied, saying that Luna wasn't breathing well and had fallen out of her crib. Alarmed, Karen called for help. When the paramedic team arrived, they were horrified by the severity of Luna's injuries. They found her with a swollen face and bruises all over her body. She was immediately rushed to Leeds General Infirmary, where she died in the intensive care unit on July 14, 2017. The paramedics didn't believe Liam's story that Luna's injuries were caused by a fall, as the floor of their home was covered in a soft carpet. Suspicious of his explanation, they alerted the police. Liam was arrested and tried at Leeds Crown Court, where he confessed to his actions and was convicted of murder in October 2017. He was sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum of 10 years and sent to HMP Leeds, a high-security prison housing over 1,000 inmates. Liam was placed in a cell with John Westland, a 29-year-old convict with a history of violence against women. On the night of November 11, 2017, the two men watched TV together until Liam fell asleep around 1 a.m. As Liam slept, Westland attacked him with a broken bottle of aftershave, leaving him bleeding profusely on the bunk bed without seeking help. The following morning, prison guards discovered Liam's body covered in blood and glass shards. It was quickly apparent that Westland, Liam's cellmate, was responsible. He was arrested and charged with murder. Initially, Westland claimed self-defense, alleging Liam had attacked him first. However, he later changed his story, admitting that he harbored hatred towards Liam for killing his baby. Westland stated that he acted out of fear due to constant harassment and threats from other prisoners regarding his own crime. He also alleged that Liam owed money to inmates with whom they had been using the synthetic drug spice together. However, the jury did not find Westland's claims credible. After a week-long trial at Leeds Crown Court, Judge Rodney Jameson sentenced Westland to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 19 years. The judge characterized the murder as brutal and unprovoked, highlighting Westland's lack of remorse or empathy for his victim, who had admitted guilt and was struggling with the consequences of his actions. Jeffrey Paschal, who's called an influencer, did something terrible. On June 9th, 2019, in Tennessee, he hurt his girlfriend while he was drunk. He's someone you shouldn't look up to or follow. A stranger didn't do the terrible things this woman talks about, but someone she trusted the most.
It was in 2019. It was in the fall. We went to like a brew at the zoo type thing. On the way home, he grabbed my hair while he was driving. I was in the passenger seat and he grabbed a hold of my hair and pulled me over into his lap. Just my head. He pulled me over and was trying to choke me. And the only way I got him to stop was by pretending like I passed out.
Significant cases might grab attention, but court details aren't there to entertain. They're meant to uncover the truth and find out what really happened.
June the 8th of 2019 is a Saturday. And what you're going to learn throughout this trial that I think probably might go into tomorrow, over the next day or two, is that at that time, Kristen Wilson was engaged to the defendant. And that Saturday started out perfect. The two of them went to dinner. They stayed there for about 3 hours. Kristen's friend was the server there. They had a nice meal. They had some drinks. They talked with friends. They then went back to Kristen's house, let her dog out, regroup for a minute. And then they actually had plans to go out and meet some more friends. You're going to hear from Miss Wilson. She's going to tell you that when they got back to her house that night, she took the dog for a walk. Mr. Paschal stayed inside the home. She's going to tell you that right before she walked back in the house, she stopped in front of her neighbor's house. She texted her friend. She says, "Hey, we're about to leave. We'll be there in a minute." She never made it. She never made it to meet her friends after that. Because what you're going to learn is when she walked back in that house, she was attacked by this defendant. You're going to hear from her how he grabbed her by the back of her head and slammed her head into the hardwood floor repeatedly. You're going to hear how he grabbed her by the back of her neck, drug her around the house, drug her up the stairs. You're going to see where she had on her face and was trying to reach for a light switch. You're going to see blood smears on the light switches. You're going to see splatter on the wall, dripped on the floor. You're going to hear how she tried to get away and she couldn't. You're going to see scrapes on her knees, scrapes on her elbows, bruises everywhere. Bruises on the back of her neck where he grabbed her when he was slamming her head on the floor. You're going to hear how this happened for what seemed like forever. Ms. Wilson's going to tell you that she blacked out multiple times, lost consciousness because of the injury to her head. And then she's going to tell you that the defendant told her, go wash your face. After he took her phone and took her car keys, go wash your face. So she did. She was terrified. She just wanted it to stop. She went and she washed her face, she washed all the blood of it best she could. He said, go lay down. So she did. She went in her room. She laid down. He sat on the edge of the bed for about an hour to 2 hours while she lay there in fear of her life, with nowhere to go, no way to leave. She's going to tell you that he had her phone, he was going through her phone, deleting things. He synced up her phone to his account, his iCloud account, virtually deleted every trace of himself on her phone, disabled the screen. And she's going to tell you that then he tried to lay down. And after laying there for 2 hours, after being beaten, she decided to take a chance in life. And she did. She ran out of her house at 2 o'clock in the morning, barefoot, no phone, no keys, nothing. She ran over to her neighbor's house, Miss Googe, I talked about in Bordeaux. She begged her to let her in. Miss Googe calls 911. You're going to hear that Miss Wilson was so scared when she got to Miss Googe's house, she hid behind cabinets. She was so scared that he was going to come after her, she didn't even open the door for the police initially because she thought it was him. You're going to see the injuries sustained by Miss Wilson. And I can't exaggerate this. You're going to see a knot on her head, the size of a fist, basically, from repeatedly having her head slammed into the floor, slammed into the walls by this defendant. You're going to hear how terrified she was that night. Being trapped in her own house, no way to call for help, nobody there but the person who had just attacked her. And I'm going to come back up here after you hear all that evidence. And I'm going to ask you to find this defendant guilty as charged of aggravated kidnapping, domestic assault, and interfering with an emergency call. Because that's exactly what happened on June the 9th of 2019.
When the accused person won't give in, the lawyer defending them must be even tougher.
Have you seen that letter before?
No.
You've never seen this letter before?
Not to my recollection, no, not at all.
So if your attorney put in a motion, if he acknowledged that you had seen this letter before in his response to the state's motion?
It's not appropriate under present recollection fresh.
I need to hear her question first.
Mr. Patrick, you have been participating with your attorney throughout this case, is that correct?
Objection to attorney-client communications.
I did not ask what you all talk about.
Well, this is another attorney in another case.
No, I'm talking
Okay,
about
guys,
you.
Arguments come this way. You don't ask the question. What's your question?
You've been participating with Mr. Isaacs throughout this process, is that correct?
Yes.
Don't tell me anything you said, but this case has been pending for 2 years now, right?
Yes.
And we've had multiple motion hearings, multiple court dates, is that correct?
Yes.
And you are aware that your attorney has filed motions on your behalf
Yes, of course.
And are you aware that your attorney has acknowledged this letter in a filing?
Are we talking about Mr. Isaacs?
Yes.
I'm not aware. I don't know what he's done.
Okay, so you don't read anything that your attorney files?
I don't know what he's acknowledged.
Okay. Do you recall telling your attorney that Ms. Wilson asked you to give your civil attorney a false number?
That's not my attorney in that paper. I don't have a Paul Dillard as an attorney. I'm sorry that...
You're not represented by anybody at Mears and Dillard?
I'm represented by Martha Mears, not Paul Dillard. I don't...
Well, you would agree with me that people in the same law firm can work on things interchangeably?
I would not know that information.
Okay. Judge, again, the reason I'm asking all of this is because, once again, 5 days prior, he provides a false phone number for Ms. Wilson in his civil deposition, or in his civil case. He provides a phone number that 100% is not Ms. Wilson's number, has never been Ms. Wilson's number. The defense has acknowledged that he did that in their filings, but state that Ms. Wilson asked him to do that. I mean, I'm not, that's just what I'm trying to get up for authenticity purposes, Judge.
The proof's got to come from here, though.
Okay.
This is a witness that we have, so you can cross-examine him within the rules of evidence.
Well, and Judge...
You don't have to argue to me in the midst of your cross, just cross the witness.
Well, Judge, my point being, I think if Mr. Paschal's not going to acknowledge any sort of knowledge about any of this stuff, then I'm going to have to call other people to get it authenticated, is kind of what I'm getting at.
You know, you can call whoever you want, but this is your witness. We're not arguing. There's no objection. Just cross the witness.
Mr. Paschal, you and Ms. Wilson do not have children together.
That is correct.
You would agree that there is a text message in here that says, hope you enjoy all your other kids. At least I get to enjoy my new little family in peace. Is that what one of the messages state?
Yeah, I remember it. I don't see it at this very moment.
December 22nd, no year.
Of 2019. Yes, I see it.
Well, just to be clear, there is no year on some of these. Is that correct?
There's not.
Okay, so some of them just have a date, but no year.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And then right above that, it says, I'll do everything I can for you to lose Caven. Is that correct?
Above that is actually...
text message from June 22nd, or December 22nd, I'm sorry.
Well, about the family and peace, above that is a different text message.
Do you see a message where you say, Ms. Wilson says, I'll do everything I can for you to lose Caven?
Yes, that was sent in November.
That is not her child, is that right?
That's correct.
And this case has been pending for 2.5 years, has it not? This case, the criminal case.
It was less than that, but somewhere around there. Yes.
Over 2 years.
Yes.
Is that right? We had multiple court dates down in Sessions Court. You remember going to those?
I did.
And we've had multiple court dates in this court. You remember coming to those?
I have.
Specifically, just since the case has been in criminal court, you were arraigned on this case January 17th of 2020.
Yeah, possibly.
You were back in court in July of 2020.
Yes.
He was sentenced to 18 years in prison. The court has revealed what happened to Heather Barron and Kareem Leva. Now, all eyes are on the next criminal case. Get ready for a tale where jealousy's freezing hold affects humanity deeply, leaving tragedy behind.
It is the court's view that this is both just punishment and necessary to protect the community.
Back in July 2016, in Mukilteo, Alan Henoff shot and killed 3 people. Losing a sibling is one of the worst things that can happen in life, especially when someone else takes them away by force.
And I'm the cousin of Anna Bowie. There are no words to convey the amount of sadness and hurt that I have endured over the very tragic and very public of my cousin Anna. I am her cousin, and this has deeply impacted my life in the way I view the world. So I can't even begin to fathom what her parents and siblings must be going through and how they are feeling. The death of Anna was single-handedly the most painful thing that has ever happened to me. I had an extremely hard time processing all of this. I was so confused. I didn't know how to feel. I didn't know how to behave. I didn't know how to act. I didn't know what I was supposed to do. I was numb, and the world around me kind of stopped. Anna was a bright, beautiful young woman. She was kind and she was loving. She was a good person and made a positive impact on the people around her, and she made the world a better place. I don't understand why she is no longer here, and why some of us, who aren't half the kind-hearted person she was, are still here, myself included. Call it survivor's guilt, but it's not fair. It's got me wondering how the universe can be so cruel. I view the world differently now. I'm not as happy, I'm a little more jaded, a lot less trusting, and very much more paranoid. In a sense, I've kind of lost faith in humanity. The day we laid Anna to rest, I was supposed to be in Mexico, but instead, I was at St. Mary's Magdalene, staring down at my baby cousin laying in her casket, her beautiful face completely shattered from the multiple gunshots. It was reconstructed. If I didn't know that was her, I would not have been able to recognize her. Her long, beautiful hair. Now, a simple wig that's a bob. I was standing beside her casket holding my iPhone and FaceTiming family members in Vietnam who weren't able to make it on such short notice. I turned to my side and watched her father, my uncle, kneeling beside her casket, tenderly caressing her face, crying, and begging for his daughter to come back. A person does not get over that, and it's changed me forever. Every time I remember that image, my heart breaks over and over again. It has not gotten easier over time. I would not wish an ounce of hurt my family and I felt on anyone, not even on the person who caused it all. And while the outcome of this hearing does not bring back a family member, it does bring a sense of peace to our family. Peace in knowing that no one else will ever be hurt from this person again. I know I speak on behalf of my family when I say that there are no resentments and no ill wishes towards Mr. Ivanov. We do not hate him because hating him is exhausting, and we forgive him for taking Anna away. We forgive him for bringing us all the pain. Not forgiving him does not bring Anna back. So that's what we have to do. Thank you.
In court, Alan chose to speak up. What he said was unexpected.
The most precious thing any of us have is life. One's own life and the lives of those dear to us. Life is more sacred than anything. We are only given one life, our one opportunity to live, love, grow, exist. On July 30th, hopeless, suicidal, and outraged with jealousy, I violated the most fundamental trust of our community by taking the lives of 3 and harming the 4th. In the process, not only did I deprive 3 individuals of all the promise, joy, and experience of a lifetime, but I also caused untold anguish, suffering, and pain to an entire community. I cannot imagine the agony of a parent losing a child, but I'm devastated by the enormity and finality of my misdeed. I have ruined my life. I have caused my family a lifetime of sadness and loss. I have ended all my friendships. So even though I cannot put myself in any of your places, I do have an idea of how completely awful my actions were and the damage I have caused, damage which cannot be undone. I want to apologize wholeheartedly to all those whose lives I've taken, Anna, Jordan, and Jake, and all of you whose lives have been so darkened by my actions, parents, relatives, and friends, as well as Will and his loved ones. I understand that this has been a nightmare for all of you. It certainly has been for me, and I don't know when, if ever, the darkness of my crimes will lift. I wish to share that not a single day has gone by for me without reflection and remorse. I have cried my eyes out day after day. While I've been portrayed as a cruel, heartless monster and this murder has been judged as premeditated, I want everyone to know that I did not intend for events to unfold as they did that night. In a moment of shock, I pulled the trigger because I couldn't control my emotions, not because I was born. I don't know what I thought would happen. I waited outside that house for hours, my heart racing like it would explode. And when I was discovered, it all happened so fast. Satan was in control. I have replayed the events over and over. How could I have done this? I cannot say, but I know that it was not my intention to take anyone's life. I never, ever was a violent or vindictive person, and until that night, I was more straight and narrow than anyone I know. Dear Anna's family, perhaps anything I say will come off as self-serving and offensive, but please hear me out. Anna visits me in my dreams and talks to me all the time. I cannot explain how much I loved her, and how much I still and forever will. I'll never be speaking to the public again. I forfeited that right. However, I'd like everyone to hear loud and clear that it was the ease of acquiring a gun that enabled me to act on my emotions. I don't mean to absolve myself of guilt or dodge responsibility, but I know for a fact that even in the feverish state that I was in, I never could have done this with my hands. I wish they never sold me a and I wish I was never legally allowed to buy one. I hope there will be continuous effort to change the law so that others cannot make such a tragic mistake. I would give anything to undo what I have done. If I could give my own life to bring the lives of Hannah, Jordan, and Jake back, I would do so in a heartbeat. There is no justification for what I did. I take full responsibility, and I will spend the remainder of my life striving, however I can, to make amends for this horrible deed. Again, I am so sorry for causing all of you to be here today, and for causing so much senseless pain. I will forever pray for the victims, their families, friends, our community, my family, and everyone who has suffered from this tragedy. May God be with all of you. I'm sorry.
After hearing the evidence presented by the lawyers, the judge gave the verdict. It's just like usual, nothing new.
And the indescribable pain, the ripping away of so much, and a world turned upside down. I have heard about numbing. I have heard anger. I have heard despair. I have had a continuous nightmare described. I have heard parents grieve the incomprehensible loss of a child. Siblings describe the equally incomprehensible loss of a sister, of a brother. I have heard others describe the loss of their family members, their friends, their loved ones. So I hope you can see that when you emptied that clip on July 30th of 2016, when you struck Anna and Jacob and Jake, you took away their future and their promise. And when you Will and you at the others, all gathered for an evening in Mukilteo, you harmed all who love them, who value them, and for those that everyone who misses them. Mr. Ivanov, this is what you have done. Your actions are heinous. They are unpardonable. You deserve to be separated from society for the remainder of your life, and you shall. There is no just punishment other than to separate you from society for the remainder of your life, and that shall be the sentence of this court. It is the court's view that this is both just punishment and necessary to protect the community. And so, as to count 1, for the aggravated first-degree committed with domestic violence and a firearm enhancement, the court imposes life without parole, including a 60-month enhancement. And as to count 2, for the aggravated first-degree murder with a firearm enhancement for the murder of Jordan Ebner, the court imposes life without parole and a 60-month enhancement. And as to count 3, for the aggravated first-degree murder of Jacob Long with a firearm enhancement, the court imposes life without parole with a 60-month enhancement. And as to count 4, for the attempted first-degree murder of William Kramer with a firearm enhancement, the court imposes 240 months in confinement with a 60-month firearm enhancement to be followed by 36 months of community custody on conditions that I will address in a few minutes. And as to count 5, for attempted first-degree of Tristan Bratfold and Alex Levine with a firearm enhancement, the court imposes 200 with the 60-month firearm enhancement to be followed by 36 months of community custody on conditions that I will address in a few minutes. Each count will be served consecutively. Each count will be served beginning with the consecutive service of the 60-month sentences on each of the 5 enhancements. While it may be academic to describe or discuss the terms of community custody, it is necessary that I do so. You are to abide by the terms of community custody, including the payment of legal financial obligations that I will address in a few minutes. You are to undergo a mental health evaluation, follow all treatment recommendations, including the taking of any prescribed medications. In terms of legal financial obligations, Mr. Peel, do you wish to speak to those other than I think what's been represented to the court as a request for only the necessary legal financial obligations?
In the next video, the main character does something unimaginable to a pregnant woman.
Now, an aggravated form of murder in the second degree can lead to a sentence of life in prison without the possibility of parole.
In February 2014, in Maui County, Stephen Capobianco took the life of a pregnant woman. It's hard to point fingers in tough situations. Even though the court looks closely at the facts, the accused will also present their side of the story.
That year that you worked with the defendant, did you get to know him?
Fairly well. Yeah, I didn't know him outside of work at all, really, but we worked together quite a bit.
Okay. When you said you didn't know him outside of work, does that mean you did not hang out with him after work hours or anything like that?
No, I only did anything with him outside of work a couple of times, and it was just move furniture. I had him help me move some furniture that I purchased.
Okay. Now, I want to turn your attention to sometime in, I guess, late March, or it could be early February of 2014.
Was that late March or early?
Late March or early February 2014. While you were working at the Mana Food store in Bahia. Did the defendant pose any question, if any, to you that caused you to take notice?
Yeah, it was a fairly unusual question he asked me at work one day.
And what question is that?
He asked me what would be the best way to get away with a murder.
When he asked you what would be the best way to get away with it, where did he say? Where did he ask you this?
In the bakery at Mana Foods.
Was anyone else there at the time?
Dave Rasmussen, the manager, he was there, and I believe Michaela was there as well. I don't know Michaela's last name.
Do you recall where he was physically when he asked you that question?
He was more or less the opposite side of the bakery from me. He had to raise his voice in order for me to hear the question.
Now, do you know if the others that were in the bakery heard it as well?
Yeah, definitely.
And how do you know they heard it?
Because they told me so, and we discussed it, and they were between me and him at the time. They would have heard it more clearly than I would have.
Right, and how is it that you know that he was addressing that question to you?
He addressed me first, "Hey, Ginseng, how would you do this?"
Now, when you first heard that question, what was your impression?
It struck me as a joke.
Had the defendant ever asked you any question that morbid or violent before?
No, nothing like that at all.
He had asked you questions before those, right?
Sure. Yeah.
But nothing like that?
No.
Did you respond to that question?
Yes.
And do you recall what your response was?
Kind of laughed at it a little bit. Like I said, I thought it was a joke. And then I told him that most murderers are caught because they kill people who they have close connections to.
When you said you got to know the defendant fairly well, was this just through work?
Yes.
And why is it that you think you got to know the defendant fairly well?
We worked directly together several days a week for, like I said, about a year, side by side, working on the same projects all day long. So, as well as you get to know someone under those circumstances, I think you do.
And you said, you testified just a moment ago that after the defendant asked you that question, you know the others heard it because they were between you, but you also talked about it with the others?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Was the defendant present when you talked about it with the others?
I don't believe so, no.
Let me move forward a little bit from after the defendant posed that question about how to get away with it. Okay. Do you recall coming to work? And I'm going to give you a date, and if you don't remember the date, you can let me know. Tuesday, February 11th, 2014.
This would be the first Tuesday after Charlie went missing.
Is that what you found out at some point?
Yeah, that was the day.
Okay. Were you back at work on that Tuesday, February 11th, 2014?
Yes.
Okay. What were your days off back then?
At that time, my schedule was with a Sunday, Monday weekend.
Okay, so your first day back to work would have been that Tuesday, the
Exactly.
11th. Now, at that time, or let me ask you this before I go too far forward. Does that mean you would have worked on Saturday and then had Sunday, Monday off during that weekend?
Yes.
Okay.
And for the last 3 years, this is what I'm going to say to you. And I still don't really know what to say to you. I'll say again, Erin said that I want so bad to make you feel the pain that she felt, or to make you feel something, to make you suffer. But as we all know, nothing we could ever say will ever make you feel anything. You may have taken Charlie's life physically, but I want you to know that she is here in spirit, and she is here stronger than she ever was before. And if anything, I hope you can feel that. I hope that you can feel her here. You never really took her away. I can't believe that you're the same person. I'm looking at you now, the same person that I knew in elementary school. And that you were so many years later. It hurt us all so bad. And like I said, I know you can't feel, you're incapable of feeling any mental pain or remorse or suffering mentally, but I hope that physically you feel it more than you made her feel it. Where is she, Stephen?
Your Honor, I want to expand a little bit on what Tommy touched on. I knew Stephen well. I consider him to be family to me, the closest friends. There was always a darkness inside of him that myself and I know many others saw and hoped that maybe the good around him could help sort of ease that or not allow it to expand, maybe with age and dissipate. Obviously, we were all wrong. I believe, as I think anybody that has been around this and understands what this monster did, that he is absolutely dangerous to this community or any other community that he is placed in. Please, I beg you, please, throw the book at him. Lock him up until he sees no sunshine ever again, for the safety of this community and any other community that he might ever be able to enter into. Justice deserves that. Charlie and Joshua deserve that. The way that he committed this is so disgusting that I truly, with all of my heart, believe that he never deserved to see the light of day again. And that's coming from someone that used to really care about Stephen. When I met him, I knew he was troubled, but I saw something inside him beyond his darkness that I thought, maybe, just maybe, I could help him find. I was wrong. There's nothing good or decent inside of him. You're a purely sociopathic person that hasn't shown 1 ounce of remorse or regret for this disgusting act that you planned and executed. I don't believe I've ever seen you express any genuine emotion in the entire time I've known you. The hatred that you're a con artist criminal of a mother placed inside of you is all there is.
Now, one possible penalty for an aggravated form of murder, second degree, is life in prison without possibility of parole, provided that it can be established beyond a reasonable doubt that, well, among other things, that the murder was conscienceless or pitiless that the victim suffered unnecessary torture and that the defendant inflicted unnecessary torture on the victim. And our laws define unnecessary torture as the infliction of extreme physical or mental suffering beyond that which necessarily accompanies the underlying. It encompasses more than the infliction of a fatal injury. That is the law in the state of Oregon. Such that the murder of an individual, which in every case is horrific and inexcusable, in other words, the intentional or knowing causing of human being, that does not classify the as one that occurred under aggravated circumstances. And indeed, Mr. Apol this morning has argued, as he has previously argued, that under a decision in this state, that it must be proven beyond reasonable doubt the specific manner caused as outlined by the court, this court, just a few moments ago. And the case he's referring to is a case in which a gentleman was beaten to death with a hammer by another individual with eyewitnesses seeing that, and it could not be proven beyond a reasonable doubt that the subjected the victim to extreme torture, as there was no proof of the specific manner of the condition of the decedent, the person, the victim in that case, after the first blow, which came very quickly, and was obviously a blow of very serious proportions, but it was followed by other blows. And in that case, the government was required to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that that was an aggravated form of, and on appeal, that did not, it was not sustained. That conviction for that portion was not sustained. And as Mr. Apol has pointed out, that that's going to definitely be an appellate issue in this case. It's another example of what's going to be following in this case. It's just one example. Now, an aggravated form of in the second degree can lead to a sentence of life in prison without the possibility of appeal. That term is not completely descriptive of the law, and no one has mentioned that. And I think it's important that I mention, because it hasn't been mentioned. I will read the law to everyone so that you understand how the law works. The law provides, in part, when I say in part, I'm not going to read the entire provision of law. But if the court imposes a sentence of life imprisonment without possibility of parole, pursuant to section 706 and 657, and that's exactly the statute in play here. As part of that sentence, the court shall order the Director of Public Safety and the Hawaii Parole Authority to prepare an application for the governor to commute the sentence to life imprisonment with parole at the end of 20 years of imprisonment.
Big thanks to our viewers for joining the courtroom journey with us. Your interest in the stories of justice is what keeps our channel alive.